So Trane Technologies is a company. We're a global manufacturer of heating and air conditioning. Our applications include residential, so a unit outside a single family home, commercial, and some of those commercial products are overdimensional, oversized. They're like on top of a rooftop on a big building, the big chillers that you would see. So extremely large, have to ship in multiple pieces. And then we also have transportation product under our Thermo King brand, and that would be like for refrigerated trucks and refrigerated ocean containers. Um, as example, our super freezer containers have shipped a lot of the vaccine distribution early on around the world. Um, so we're sort of a pretty big player in that market in terms of yard management and what our network looks like in the United States. So we're deployed about 11 sites to date. But just in the United States alone, we do about 150,000 shipments a year, just in the US, even though we're a global company, to about 6,000 different distributor and dealer and ship to locations on any particular day. So our network inbound is fairly complicated, but outbound, it's very dynamic. There's no doubt about it. And of course, like I mentioned before, our shipment size, like probably a lot of companies that are listening today, anywhere from small parcel to big project cargo, international, domestic shipping, all modes, including truckload, LTL, flatbed, break bulk, ro-ro, ocean container, heavy air. The rest of this presentation, I'll just give you some background here as we go into, why yard, TMS, and real-time visibility sort of need to be together. Just a story a long time ago when Albert Einstein was the renowned physicist, used to travel. He was sort of a logistician too. His preferred method of travel was train and by locomotive train. One day he was getting on a train bound for a place where he was going to speak. It was very cold in the rail cars back then in the wintertime, so he had on his suit and his tie, his overcoat, jacket, and he gets on there and the conductor comes by and is taking tickets and says, "Could I have your ticket, please?" And he searches in his briefcase and all his pockets, his coat, can't find his ticket, and he starts to get nervous. And he was a frequent traveler on the train. The conductor said, "Dr. Einstein, I know you, it's okay." And he went on to the further end of the rail car. And as he got to the end of the car, right before he went to the next one, he turned around and now he saw Dr. Einstein in this rail car that was probably less than clean, on his hands and knees on the floor in a suit, looking for his ticket. He went back to him and said, "Dr. Einstein, it's okay, it's okay. I know who you are." And Albert Einstein looked up at him and said, "Young man, I know who I am too. I just don't know where I'm going." And the rest of this presentation is sort of about where you can go and where you can take not only yard but all the pieces to put together basically a strategy to have a digital twin of your supply chain, which everyone really desperately needs right now. I think anybody on this call would probably have it. And I can tell you that when I come in the morning, I get into work about 6:15. I drive in, and on the drive in, I listen to sports talk radio. It's just it's sort of background noise. I'm really just going through my mind, like most of it people are when they commute. What's their day going to be like? What are they going to focus on first? And I have to tell you, on sports talk radio, every once in a while I hear the ads, and obviously, sports talk radio is largely geared towards. It's probably like old guys like me, probably. And I can tell you, the ads that come on are things, and they all say the same thing. It's interesting. So they sell. I've heard ads for men's underwear, for men's socks, and little pills over the counter that you can take that will make you bigger, stronger, better looking, all this stuff. And they always say in these ads, "This will change your life." Well, let me tell you, I'm not really sure. I don't know about any of you, but socks and underwear, not that they're bad products if anybody makes them, they're wonderful products. Socks, underwear, and little pills that you can take over the counter, none of those things have changed my life. But I can tell you, as a logistician, linking these three things together, I think have changed and will change your life. And that's what we'll talk about sort of for the rest of the presentation here. It's about changing our lives. Everybody knows today then nothing flows predictably. Nothing. All our product. It takes longer. And if you used to be able to be good, to be able to answer the question, where is my truck now? That's unfortunately, it's not enough anymore. If that got you by 2 years ago, it's not getting you by now. Almost all businesses that are probably on this call have more demand right now than they have supply to sustain their demand. Now more than ever, what you have to do to be relevant, I don't care how big you are, because I'm in a medium to large size company. Our revenue is about 14 billion. But I have peers that are and I came from really big companies out there, but we're all kind of in the same boat right now. To be relevant in this market, you have to be relevant with your service providers. You have to be able to not only get their assets, but use them in a way that's beneficial to them, because they have a lot of choices today. So we need the best route times, the best routes, the best execution to get the best asset utilization, to get the service that we need. To be able to do that, you need to be able to use something like a YMS, which actually really empowers your asset-based trucking companies, because it will let them, as an example, choose the slot times that they want so that they can maximize their time. And you can also pick delivery times, appointment times, so that you can link your primary carrier acceptance that you get out of your TMS, and it should be at least 97%, to empowering the truck drivers when they accept the tender on the load. You want them to slot the load and give them slots that make sense. And so now you can look at your docks every day, and there are some days where you don't have enough to ship. But then there's other days, if you have 50 slots, if you can't maximize out those 50 slots, that you have personally, or your team's been responsible for loss of revenue for that day. Maybe you'll make it up, maybe you're not. But it's a really hard thing to do when every day is maxed out. You can't make up misses anymore. So now you'll be able to do things like get the optimal mix, and we'll talk about that a little bit more, about your live loads to your drop-in hooks, whatever that would be good for you. You'll have visibility to everything that's out there in the yard and be able to plan proactively. So linking the TMS to the tender and the tender accept, to the real-time visibility of the transaction, to the asset management that is critical today in your yard, is really where you have to go. And the additional thing is if you look at real-time visibility, some of you may use, and the FourKites product is wonderful in that, by the way. And let's say you don't have 100% visibility, and one of the biggest challenges is you have some shuttle network, or you have some broker company, and it's really hard to get the brokered loads in your system. But with the YMS, you can capture all the asset numbers now. So whether the trucking company gave it to you up front or not, it doesn't matter. You can capture the load now when it comes in, and you can tag it, and you can take it on the outbound side. So to your customers, which may matter most to you, you'll be able to get that 100% visibility that maybe you never had before that you really want. So linking all the nodes and flows together through these tools and using YMS and Appointment Manager with Dynamic Yard together, it's a really powerful way to go. The payback on YMS, why I said this will change your life other than socks or underwear or little pills, the payback is immediate. Okay, we're not that big a company, and we had a payback in 3 months, just in reduction in detention and wait time charges, right? As well as if you have any assets on the yard that you're paying for because they're sitting there for days, it will be really good. So what you do is you empower the desktop. It used to be we would have things like I would get the emails or somebody on my staff about, I need more drops today. I don't have enough trailers. Well, that's great. So you gave us, the facility gave us 2 hours to figure that out. That's really not what you want. Obviously, you want to be able to plan proactively ahead of time so that you can have the right mix. It's not good enough to have 40 trailers on the yard. You have to have the right mix for the right carriers or where they're going, or it doesn't work. And so today, you'll get that immediate payback. Beyond that, you'll be able to slot things appropriately, like I said, to maximize out the use. So some of you all just use live loads all the time, and I get that. You may be just in time. Uh, but for most companies out there, if you really want to maximize everything, especially today when so many trucks have to be short cycle because the trucking companies don't have enough for you, right? Or your demand, your supply chain is too spiky. It's a whole lot one day and then not enough another because of all the delivery times. If you really look at things like that, you want to maximize out. So, in a typical day, what's good for most companies on short cycles? In other words, 10 or less than 2 days, maybe 3%, 4%. What are companies running today? 10%, 20% on short cycles. So, how do you manage that? That means more live loads. Well, if you're going to have live loads, you can't do all live loads because they take time. So if you can slot them in the right thing, whether it's a third shift or early in the morning or whatever, then you can maximize out your mix between live loads and drop-in hooks. So you can utilize your assets better and get things through. The other thing is you can find the real truth on how live loads take. So, what's best in class? It's probably less than an hour. And facilities will tell you don't have enough trailers, but here you can get the truth to say, oh, wait a minute, your live loads are taking 3 hours or 4 hours or 5 hours. So what do we need to do? Work collaboratively to change the pattern or the mix to get a more optimal load for you, because that's fine if you want to blame this team or that team for it, but the real root cause comes back to here. So once you can see all those things, you'll have no more last minute requests for trailers. You don't have to count trailers in the yard. You don't have to guess on visibility of trailers. You don't have to guess anymore and try to figure out which trailer came in first, which trailer came in last, which trailer is empty, which trailer is full. And like I mentioned before, you can link the asset number to visibility. So if it's a shuttle network, a broker, or somebody who's just not really good at providing the data you need into the FourKites visibility tool, you can get that on both short hauls, long hauls, shuttles. So what you've really done with this here is, besides all the rework, all the emails, all the time, all the fight for what the real truth of the problem is, you've done what I call empower the desktop, which is really important. That's what you want any tool to be able to do. Empower the desktop for rapid decision making. Okay. And that's the big benefit here. Man, I don't want to be early adopter in anything. It just means nothing but problems when you do that. I want to be a fast follower. I like that. That sounded better to me, being a fast follower. But being a fast follower is just being a follower. And quite frankly, the issues that you have when you launch something early, all you're doing is giving yourself visibility to the problems and the defects that you never knew you had before in your data and you really need to fix. So in today's world, there's no reason not to get on with, the whole FourKites is at the leading edge of all the visibility, whether it's yard, whether it's real time, track and trace visibility, whatever it is, it's out there. They're out there, but there's still a lot of, it's an immature market, mostly because the data hasn't caught up. But there's no reason not to start, because what you'll find when you get into this is a lot of the problems are on your side. So here's what I'd recommend to everybody out there. First of all, scale the rollout. Start small, scale fast. Pick the facility when you start with this, which is your worst facility, not your best. Because if you do your worst, everyone's going to go, we're great, but you're not going to find all your problems. So pick the worst one. However you define worst. Most volume, most late, most confused, asset management poor, whatever it is. Pick that one, start first. And then do a pilot. And pilots are obvious. Somebody's on the phone going, oh, but wow, there's a lot of insight there. But let me tell you, my experience with a lot of technology today, and specifically a FourKites tool, is they work. But I'll tell you why they won't work. They won't work sometimes because you have data gaps. We certainly do. And we don't have enough time in this presentation. But I could talk about every tool that I've launched where we have found data gaps, where we thought we were okay, and the tool works, because the people, the product management team, they know it works, but it won't work for us. Why won't it? It's usually data gaps on your side. So you need to understand what those data gaps are first, and what is going to prevent you from maximizing the full potential. And the pilot will do that. And then the next thing is accountability. Before you get too far into it, you need to decide who's going to manage the data analytics, because you're going to get a lot of data out of this, right? Who's going to hold the carriers accountable? What are the sites' role and what's their accountability there? And then who manages the defects? Because you're going to find a lot of defects out of this. And then you need to pick a tool, and FourKites is great for this, that drives engagement. You need what I call beautiful software, something that drags you in, anyone can use, and wants you to keep going and going further and further. Facebook was sort of invented that way. Beautiful software. So you keep scrolling, keep looking. Just a funny thing about Facebook, I'm such an old guy. When Facebook first came out, I saw somebody at work looking at it. I go, well, what is that? And he goes, oh, this is called Facebook. I said, well, what are you looking at here? Well, a friend of mine who's I'm friended with just put a picture out there about the delicious breakfast that she had. Oh, and what are you doing? Well, I'm commenting on the delicious breakfast. And so I thought, I'm writing this off. Not really interested in what somebody ate and making comments about it. This is a waste of my time. But my point is that almost every website that you go to today, every place you go, it has that kind of engagement where it drives you in to drive collaboration. And the FourKites process has that. So you need to pick something that drives engagement because you want everyone using the tool, not just your team, but you want everyone getting in there and looking at it. And then the next thing is change your standards to close your defects. You may have standards and you wrote them at one point in time, but if you have uncontrolled yards, poor inventory discipline, you use your trailers for storage, you're not using FIFO in the trailers that have yet to be unloaded, or you have delays in your live loads, you have defects in your process, and you need to update your standard work as you go through. And then finally, you need to have continuous improvement. Have a manage for daily improvement process, because when you unlock all this data, you're going to need to have a process to decide who on a daily basis looks at it, who manages it, and the engagement you need between logisticians, procurement, and the site management to really drive where you want to go. And I think this model here has worked well for me over the years, and I'm sure it will for you too. And I'm sure probably a lot of people use something similar to this.
Agreed.
Yeah, I would say find a company that matches your culture and values and is passionate about what they do. It's not all the visibility projects, whether it's YMS, TMS, real-time tracking, they're passionate about it. It is their raison d'etre, their reason for being. And the people in the company, the reason they're there, it's not just because of a job. It's they're passionate from learning from their customers and wanting to do better. And I can tell you, I've engaged with Matt, Priya, the team, over 2 companies now. And I can tell you they have a fundamental, deep interest in the problems that we have. They really want to know about them and they really want to solve them. It's really hard to get that kind of customer service. I can tell you with some, especially like big ERP companies, the answer is like, well, this is the tool and this is how it works, right? You want to change something that's interesting, but let's talk about the next $1 million you'll need to spend, and we wouldn't recommend you do it anyway because our tool is just great, right? You don't get that here. Your business is dynamic. You need a partner that's going to be dynamic too. So the journey is really great with FourKites, and it's very hard to find that anywhere. So most all of us at one point in time, and even if sometimes you're up on the higher end, you have to answer the question. You start with, where was my shipment, right? So this is the journey through visibility, right? Where was it? Where was, not where is, where was something, right? And you can see here, if you look at this, you go from siloed up to leverage your scale that you have, and everybody does have some level of scale where you can integrate your tools and your flows across the business, where you can collaborate with your customers and your partners in the business, and then where you can drive value. And then you can see the maturity and the values, the curve. So everybody starts with, where was my part? And I can tell you, if you're in that mode, it's an awful place to be, because normally when you're doing it with phone calls and spreadsheets, and you're often wrong. There's so many times when somebody asks, where was something, and you give them an answer, and then you find out a day later it wasn't right, okay? Because nobody really knows, because you don't have data. And the next one is, where is not my shipment, right? But where is my part now? And when will it be there? That's the fundamental thing that everybody needs to get to as fast as they can. But once you do that, then you start to, if you have that data, you can create, and we'll talk about this in a minute, a digital twin of your nodes and flows, so you can have the data flow match the physical flow, which is really important. And then you can say, let's look at all this and figure out how I can manage it more effectively. And once you do that, you can get the clues to what's really driving your network behavior so that you can really orchestrate value. And from that, we can build out and even go deeper into this, probably on the next slides. As you go through this model, one of the things I would tell you is, because I've talked to some people about it, and what people say is when they look at things like this, oh, that's really interesting. But we're way better than this. We're going to go right to 5. And it's like, great if you could, But I would say this is a lot like building a house. You have to put the footers down first. You can't build the roof or the master suite upstairs or whatever you want. Don't skip steps because there's real value along the way in the whole journey. And there's just as much value at the early part of this as there is at the end of this. And so, if you look at this slide right here, there's a couple things I want to point out. If you're in the first two areas, which is not bad to be in, the enablers are you need to get, for most companies, a TMS, visibility tools, and the YMS, which we talked about. You'd also want to have network design tools. We use Supply Chain Guru. There's other ones, the LlamaSoft tool. Okay. But there's other ones out there if you're trying to look at your network, certainly dynamically. And then the other thing is that, initially you may be low cost focused and internal focused, but over time you'll start to get into strategic sourcing. Why this is so important is I can tell you for most companies out there, and I'm an old guy, a long time ago, the benchmark was what's the benchmark for how much full truckload you should have? Well, it's like, you should have one company for every $2 million. Well, that's really interesting. But if you've got like 100 million a truckload, you're going to have a lot of providers, and that's not going to work today. And why is that? The strategic sourcing. You need your data flow to match your physical flow. It's not just about low cost. It used to be about what's the cost for the truck and do they come on time? And those things are still important. But now it's more about data quality and data latency because you have to manage them through a visibility tool. It's really important that they book in advance. Do they deliver on time? What's the transit look like? What's the quality look like? And what's the data the customers look like? So data quality, data latency is really important on who you pick. So that kind of changes your procurement focus as you go up the ladder. And then eventually, as you get into 3 and 4, you'll start to take all this data that you have and create that digital twin of your supply chain. And from there, you'll be able to tell what goes on in your supply chain, what's driving it, and how do we change it. And that's how you get into the upper pieces there. And then the other thing is you want a control tower enabled platform. And there's a million buzzwords out there about control tower. Make it really simple here. Really, it's either by region or one place. You need maybe 1 to 10 people that can look at your data every day, give people early warnings at the facilities of the customer so you can do planning, alternative planning if something's going wrong. And then to create the data flow so you can see that's driving network behavior. That's really what you need in a control tower platform. There's a lot of fancy tools out there, but once you have all these things, you can do that on your own. And, that's kind of the journey that we're on right now. And, I would say we're kind of in the middle of the journey, putting the pieces together here. I've done it previously at another company. When you get it all together, it's a great empowerment tool for the company. It's needed more than ever right now because this will give you, like I said before, the one version for the truth. And I got about a minute left before you're going to kick me out. Just a couple of other things that I'm going to mention is so in college, I was a music major, had a music scholarship. And this is a true story. I'm not making this up. I got to see Sir George Schulte in person. He was the head conductor of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in the 80s, probably 70s, 90s. I don't know. When Chicago, maybe it is still today, but the best symphony in the world. Okay. And one of the questions one of the people asked him when we were together with him is, what motivates you more? Is it the applause? And he said, no, it's not the applause. It's the silence. It's when we get done with a piece where everyone just gasps and they are breathless before they applaud. That's what motivates me. And when I first got into companies, I used to get things about like, here's emails about, well, there's donuts in the break room or let's go out for a beer. I don't get those anymore. It's nothing about problems. But when you can have real-time visibility like this, you can track things to show exactly where something is yard. And when you get the email that's not very complimentary about where is this or where is that, you can show them when it came in, when it came out, where is it right now, with a picture and with a footprint of when it actually crossed, the whatever zone that you've mapped, you geofenced. And then you get the silence. You get no email back. You get the silence. And that's what we all live for, the success and the silence. So what I would say to all of you, unlike Einstein, I hope you know not only who you are, but where you're going. This is our journey. I hope this helps you in yours. So thanks.